Hello, I'm here with Neil Grandstaff. He's just getting ready to start playing his gig at Roland Wines, and we're very excited to have Neil here. I thought I'd take a few moments to talk to Neil, find out a little bit about him, and I hope you enjoy it. Neil, you have a very interesting name. Could you explain kind of where it came from and what the origins are?
It means large farm. You've heard of bigger staff and greater staff and grand staff, and those are all English and Irish guys. So I come from that side. That's my dad's side of the family.
Neil, give us some background of how you got into music and some of the experiences you had early on in your musical journey.
Classical guitar instructor. So I got lucky. He taught me the right stuff early on. I started playing gigs when I was about 13 or 14 years old. To start teaching, it was a very unusual thing. I didn't realize how unusual that was until I grew up. But I started in the teaching side of it, working in Salem, Oregon. I was originally from Seattle, so my dad and my mom and I moved out of Washington when I was, early teens, and got located in the Willamette Valley, and I started teaching and playing, and I had a band in high school, did pretty well, and instead of having to pick beans and berries every year, I got lucky, and when I was 16 and 17 years old, I played 5 nights a week, 6 weeks out of every summer at a nightclub in Corvallis. And that was my first really playing nightclubs, but I played a lot of frat house dances and stuff. We had a pretty decent rock band, and we won a few contests, and we had a really decent manager. And so that went through high school. I left high school. I went out on the road, oops, days, and then continued to play in groups. I had several different bands. Had a couple of different groups that played jazz, played a lot of country music, played at Jubit's starting in '76, literally. And after I got married in '77, so got married to a girl that was from Portland. So I kept playing. I played in Jubit's. I think the last gig I played in Jubit's was a few years back, but I played there for almost 25 years, off and on again. They were 5-night-a-week gigs in those days. It was 4 or 5 hours a night. Did all that stuff, played all over the place, played in Portland, played in Seattle. I've subbed for different guys. We've had different groups. We got Sound Advice, Johnny Dark and the Wonder Tones, Nuance. Probably close to, I've been probably in at least 45 or 50 different groups in the last 50 years. But went out on the road, had my first experience playing in the casinos and that sort of thing when I was 18 and 19. And by the time I was 22 or 3, I was back to school. Went back and taught at Lane Community College. And then later I traveled some more, went to Alaska a couple of times, went up and down the coast, played in Utah, Nevada, and California, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, did all that shtick, Utah was a pretty cool place to play. I always liked playing in Utah. They were very nice folks there. And kind of settled back into the Portland area. Got married in '77, been married ever since. And I started teaching at Mount Hood Community College. And I continued to play gigs. I had a production company in 1979, and through 1981 we produced musical ads, soundtracks, radio and television ID stuff. I did ads for Hertz, for Cadillac, JCPenney's, Treetop. Kind of the fact I'm still doing it, that's exciting. I'm still playing at 71, and this last season, I've gone back to work with a Native American flute player named Jan Michael Looking Wolf, and he's a world-renowned flute player, and that's a nice project. Just finished a project actually two projects. One was my website. It's Guitar Mechanics, and that's a website you can go and look at a lot of you can hear all my CDs that I picked out, put in the archive. The last production I did was 2022, a little an album that was from the time I wrote game music for 6 years, and I did game design last year. As a matter of fact, I designed a game called Ghost of the Utah, which is a real venue in San Francisco. So, and I worked for Sierra Online, did Space Quest 6, Police Quest 4, King's Quest 7, Twisty History, Slater and Charlie Go Camping. I did all the music for Trophy Bass, which is a big game all over the world. So I did music content for all those and sound effects, some voiceovers, stuff that pays the rent. Honest to God, I like all of it. I love all of it. Love all those different styles of music. I like playing everything. I think if you can keep your mind open to that and not let the huge amount of material out there intimidate you and scare you off, you learn as many different styles as you can. You'll work enough to support yourself, then you can play enough and have a legitimate reason to be practicing. It's hard to muster up the chutzpah to decide you're going to practice 5 to 7 hours a day when you're not working. When you're working, you should practice at least 3 to 4 hours a day. You should practice every day. Shouldn't let any time go by.
A wonderful jazz guitar player and singer from Portland, Oregon. Neil, what kind of advice do you have for young musicians coming up and wanting to find work in the business?
I'm not kidding. It takes a copious amount of practice just to be able to play a song that people don't run you out of the room after you're done. You probably know that because you're a player. But yeah, it takes an amazing amount of, unbelievable amount of practice, more than most people realize until they get into it. They go, wow, I had to practice and I had to learn 16 songs. My repertoire that I work with is over 200 songs. I know probably a total of about 3,500 songs. I know a lot of songs, but I practice a lot. When I was a kid, I used to practice almost 2 hours a day when I was 10, 12 years old. Practiced all the time. And that's probably why I started teaching and playing when I was 13, 14 years old. That's all I wanted to do. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not an easy life. You don't make a whole ton of money. So you have to figure out how to monetize that's another thing I tell young guys. Figure out how to monetize what you're doing. Don't fool around. It takes a long time to get good at this, And I tell people, you need to do a certain number of repetitions of certain exercises for the practice. I'm not kidding. It takes a copious amount of practice just to be able to play a song that people don't run you out of the room after you're done. You probably know that because you're a player. But yeah, it takes an amazing amount of, unbelievable amount of practice, more than most people realize until they get into it. They go, wow, I had to practice and I had to learn 16.
Thanks so much for listening to the Mark Rowland Show. Neil Grandstaff, we thank you for all of your time and effort in this interview. If you want to know more about Neil, his accomplishments, his guitar learning methods, go to guitarmechanics.com. You'll find a world of information that could be very helpful to you. So for now, I'm going to sign off and thank you for joining me.